Welcome, sleepy soul. Tonight I am your storyteller, your guide through shadows and whispers. Here in the dark corners of imagination, every creak, every shadow, and every whisper has a story to tell. Welcome to Creepytalks, where the night never ends and the tales are waiting for you. Chapter 1. The Perfect Match. It started like every other Monday. The city was gray, with rain dripping lazily from the windows of Harsha's tiny apartment. She sat cross-legged on her sofa, phone in hand, scrolling through her favorite dating app. Swipes left, swipes right. The anonymity of it all gave her a strange thrill. She didn't have to commit, didn't have to care, didn't have to be herself. Then she saw him. Aarav. His profile was clean, too clean, almost unnervingly so. Sharp jawline, perfect teeth, eyes that seemed to hold secrets. And his bio. Looking for someone who can see through the ordinary. Something about that line pulled her in. She swiped right. Within seconds, a notification popped up. It's a match. The conversation started innocently. Hey, he typed. I'm glad we matched. Harsha felt a little rush. She typed back, me too. The next message came almost immediately. Do you believe in coincidences? She paused. Coincidences? She'd been asked that before, by someone she'd met briefly at a cafe, who later turned out to be nothing. She smiled, replying, sometimes. Why? Because meeting you feels inevitable, he said. It was smooth, unsettlingly smooth. The kind of smoothness that made her skin tingle. Over the next few days, their conversation deepened. He seemed to know things, little details about her routine, her favorite coffee shop, the streets she walked to get home. Every revelation he made about himself seemed innocent enough, but Harsha felt an inexplicable sense of déjà vu, as if she had met him before. Then came the first red flag. He insisted they meet in person, but only at odd hours. The city is quieter at night, he explained. You'll feel safer. Harsha laughed nervously. It's safer for you, I think. He didn't reply immediately. When he did, it was chillingly calm. I want you to see the world as I see it. Harsha brushed it off. She was excited after all. The thrill of a new connection was hard to resist. The night they finally agreed to meet, she took the train to an unfamiliar part of the city. Rain-slicked streets reflected neon lights, creating illusions in every puddle. Her phone buzzed. I'm near. Look up. She did, and there he was. But something wasn't right. He stood unnaturally still, his eyes scanning her face like a predator measuring prey. And the smile, too wide, too perfect, sent a shiver down her spine. Before she could think, he began walking toward her. But instead of the ordinary steps of a person, they seemed calculated, almost mechanical. Something inside her screamed, but the words wouldn't come out. And then the phone vibrated again. You're exactly where I need you. Don't move. Chapter 2. The Streets Whisper. Harsha's heart hammered in her chest. Aarav's figure loomed closer through the rain-soaked haze, his steps precise, measured, almost predatory. Every instinct screamed at her to turn and run, but something, curiosity, fear, held her in place. He stopped a few feet away, just outside the neon glow of a convenience store. Don't be afraid, he said softly. His voice was calm, soothing, but there was an edge to it, like a knife hidden in silk. I don't even know you, Harsha stammered, fumbling with her umbrella. The rain dripped onto her coat, mixing with the nervous sweat on her neck. You know more about me than you think, Aarav replied, tilting his head, studying her. And I know more about you. The words made her stomach twist. She had told him nothing personal. How could he know her favorite streets, the coffee shop she frequented, even the exact shade of blue her scarf was? Before she could respond, he pulled a small device from his coat pocket. It glowed faintly, like a miniature screen. On it, photos scrolled rapidly. Pictures of her from days, even weeks ago. Moments she didn't realize anyone had captured. Walking to work, buying groceries, sitting alone at a park bench. Where, where did you get these? She whispered, horrified. Aarav smiled that same unnerving smile. I told you, you know more about me than you think. And now you'll understand that I know more about you than you realize. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance, but it did nothing to ease her fear. Harsha's phone buzzed in her pocket. She fumbled it out, praying it was a friend checking in. But the message froze her blood. Don't try to run. You're exactly where you need to be. Her hands shook violently. The city streets, once familiar, now felt like a labyrinth designed to trap her. Every shadow seemed to twist, every reflection in the puddles showing more than just her own face. She turned sharply, trying to flee, but Aarav mirrored her movements effortlessly, always a few steps behind, always just out of reach. She ducked into a narrow alley, hoping to lose him in the maze of buildings. Her lungs burned as she ran, the rain soaking her hair and coat. But the alley seemed endless, twisting impossibly, the neon signs from the main streets dimming until she was surrounded by darkness. And then she saw him. Aarav was there, waiting at the end of the alley, as if he had never moved. Harsha's mind raced. This was impossible. No person could move like that. And yet, there he was, calm, patient, unhurried, watching her with a smile that was no longer human. Her phone buzzed again. The city watches, Harsha. It knows when you try to escape. She stumbled backward, her back hitting the cold brick wall. Panic surged, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps. The streets around her seemed to pulse, the neon lights flickering as if the city itself were alive, whispering, laughing at her helplessness. And then she heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper behind her. You swiped right, and now you belong. Harsha spun around. The alley was empty, but the feeling of being watched intensified. She realized with a chilling clarity that it wasn't just Aarav. Something deeper, something larger had noticed her. The city itself seemed complicit. Every shadow hid eyes. Every puddle reflected faces she didn't recognize. Her phone buzzed one final time, and she froze. The screen displayed a single message. Step into the light or disappear forever. Harsha's instincts screamed at her. She could stay in the alley and risk whatever waited there, or step out into the flickering neon glow of the city where she had no idea what awaited her. With trembling legs, she took a step forward, and then another. Psychological tension is building, showing that Aarav isn't just a stalker. He might be something beyond normal human comprehension. The city itself is part of the horror now, adding paranoia and dread. Chapter 3. Mirrors of the Mind. Harsha stepped into the flickering neon light of the main street, but the city no longer felt familiar. The skyscrapers loomed like silent sentinels, their windows reflecting her own terrified face over and over. Every reflection seemed wrong, her eyes too wide, her smile forced, her movement slightly delayed. She blinked and the images didn't sync. Aarav's voice whispered from somewhere, though she couldn't see him. The city shows what you try to hide. She spun around, but the streets were empty. Cars passed by, indifferent to her panic. Yet she felt them watching, drivers' eyes lingering too long, pedestrians glancing at her with knowing smirks, and in the glass of the buildings, shadowy figures that mimicked her movements, but with subtle, sinister differences. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "You can't escape yourself, Harsha." A shiver ran down her spine. She tried to run, but her legs felt heavy, like wading through invisible water. The neon signs flickered violently, spelling words that weren't there before. "Already chosen. Too late. Look closer." Harsha stumbled into a small cafe, hoping for safety, but the interior felt wrong. The barista's smile stretched unnaturally wide, eyes glinting like black marbles. On the walls, mirrors reflected the cafe perfectly. But she noticed one detail. In every mirror, Aarav stood behind her. Not just in one reflection, but all of them, always watching. She clutched her phone, dialing her friend Raya, but the line only crackled. A distorted voice answered, "Why did you swipe right?" The voice was Aarav's, yet deeper, layered, almost as if multiple people, or entities, spoke through it. Harsha dropped the phone. The cafe seemed to shift around her. Tables elongated, chairs warped, the walls stretching unnaturally. The reflections multiplied. She saw herself at every angle, yet her expressions didn't match her movements. Panic overtook reason. Her mind screamed that she was losing control. Then a shadow fell across her. She looked up, and there he was, Aarav. Calm, patient, his smile even more chilling in the warped light. "You see now, don't you? The city isn't just streets and buildings. It's a mirror, and you're trapped inside it." Harsha wanted to scream, but her voice was swallowed by the distorted space around her. The mirrors now showed infinite versions of herself, some running, some screaming, some smiling at the horror, all under Aarav's steady gaze. "Why? What do you want from me?" she whispered, voice trembling. Aarav's smile deepened. "I want you to understand. Everyone who swipes right enters a world they can't control. You wanted connection, didn't you? Now you'll see the truth of it. The city sees, the mirrors know, and I just guide you." Harsha's knees buckled. She realized she had no escape. Every exit she tried led back to the cafe. Every street looped endlessly. Her phone buzzed one final time, illuminating the dark space with an unnatural glow. "Look closer, Harsha. This is only the beginning." And then the mirrors began to shimmer, each one reflecting not her own terrified face, but someone else. Someone who had swiped right before her, trapped eternally in this city of reflections. Harsha screamed, and the sound echoed endlessly, bouncing off walls that didn't exist, swallowed by the city that was no longer real. The last thing she saw before the lights flickered out completely was Aarav's face in every mirror, watching, patient, eternal. Chapter 4. The city breeze. Harsha woke, or thought she woke, on a cold, rain-slick street. The neon lights buzzed overhead, but the city felt wrong. The buildings loomed impossibly high, casting shadows that moved independently of any light source. She shivered, hugging her coat tighter, realizing the alley she had fled from no longer existed. The streets twisted in impossible angles, bending like metal under pressure. Every sound was amplified, the drip of water from a broken pipe, footsteps that weren't hers, whispers in the wind that carried her name. Her phone lay at her feet, screen cracked, yet still glowing. A new message appeared. "You're awake. Good. It's time you see the city as I do." Aarav's name flashed as the sender. She hadn't pressed anything. He didn't need to. Somehow the message had reached her without signal, without electricity, as if the city itself carried his words. Harsha stumbled forward, every street she entered morphing into corridors of mirrors, windows, and puddles reflecting impossible angles. Every reflection multiplied, distorted, showing versions of herself that didn't move in sync, that screamed silently or laughed cruelly. She rounded a corner and froze. On the walls, graffiti scrawled in dripping black paint spelled messages she hadn't seen before. The right swipe is never free. The city remembers your choices. Look closer, always closer. Then she heard it, the soft, deliberate tapping of footsteps behind her. She spun, heart racing. The street was empty. The only sound was her own breathing. Or was it? A voice whispered in the air. You cannot run from yourself. Harsha's stomach churned. This wasn't Aarav speaking aloud. This was the city itself, twisting her reality, making her doubt her senses. The lampposts flickered, neon signs bent toward her, and shadows moved independently, creeping closer with intent. Desperate, she ran. She ran through streets she didn't recognize, alleys she hadn't seen before, sidewalks that led nowhere. And everywhere reflections stared back. Herself, Aarav, people she didn't know, all locked in silent torment. Her phone buzzed again. This time the message was a video. She pressed play with trembling fingers. The footage showed her apartment, her own life, moments she thought private. And in the corner of the screen, barely visible, was Aarav, watching, smiling, patient. Harsha dropped the phone. The message wasn't just a threat. It was a statement of inevitability. She realized with bone-deep horror, this city had become a prison, and Aarav was its gatekeeper. The rain began to fall harder, washing the streets in reflections that seemed alive, pulsing with her fear. Every puddle, every window, every shadow seemed to whisper, "You wanted connection. Now live with it." She ran into an open square, the city's skyline twisting impossibly above her. Skyscrapers bent inward, streets curved like the inside of a spiral, and in the center, a single figure waited. Aarav, not walking, not moving, just standing, his gaze fixed, unblinking. Her legs gave out. She fell to the ground, chest heaving. The city pulsed around her, alive with intention. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, echoing in every direction. She chose the right swipe. She belongs now. She belongs now. Harsha looked up at Aarav, and for a moment, the calm, unnerving smile she had first seen in the app froze her completely. But then it changed, slightly imperceptibly, into a knowing grin, a grin that suggested he had been waiting, watching, orchestrating this nightmare far longer than she could imagine. She screamed, but the sound was absorbed, swallowed by the streets, lost among the twisting reflections, endless windows, and silent witnesses. And somewhere far above, the city seemed to exhale, as if satisfied that its newest resident understood the rules. Once you swipe right, you cannot leave. Chapter 5. Reflections of Nothing. Harsha stumbled to her feet, knees trembling, rain plastering her hair to her face. The streets of the city had become a nightmare labyrinth. Neon lights stretched impossibly high. Shadows slithered across walls like living things, and reflections, too many reflections, showed her not as she was, but as she feared she might be. Every puddle mirrored a different version of herself, pale, screaming, smiling, crying. Some versions whispered secrets she didn't know she had. Others laughed cruelly, mocking her terror. She wanted to run, but the streets bent, twisted, and narrowed, leading her inexorably toward the center of the square where Aarav stood. He didn't move. He didn't need to. The city itself carried his presence, and every step Harsha took seemed anticipated, countered by the environment around her. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "What do you want?" Aarav smiled, that same unnerving, perfect smile, but his eyes seemed to gleam differently now, like he was peering into her very soul. "I don't want anything from you," he said softly. "You wanted something. You swiped right. You opened the door. The city, it only responds to choices." Harsha's mind reeled. The city was alive. She could feel it pulsing beneath her feet, in the walls, in the reflections. Every corner she turned, every step she took, fed the labyrinth. She tried to scream, but her voice shattered against the buildings, lost in echoes that didn't belong to her. Then she noticed them, other people, or what had once been people, trapped in reflections, some reaching out, some screaming silently, others just staring blankly. The city had collected them all, each a previous victim of the right swipe, their faces twisted in eternal torment, and every gaze she met seemed to plead for release, yet also warned her to surrender. Harsha backed away, her mind splitting between reality and illusion. The boundaries no longer existed. The city's geometry warped with her fear, turning streets into staircases that led nowhere, alleys that looped infinitely, and puddles that became portals to other moments she hadn't lived, or perhaps had lived differently. Her phone buzzed once more. She dared not check it, but curiosity, mixed with terror, forced her fingers to tap. The screen displayed a single image, herself standing in the square, smiling at Aarav, but her eyes were black, void-like, and the message underneath read, "She chose right. She belongs now." Aarav's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "The city is patient. It teaches. It waits. You wanted connection, Harsha, and now it's teaching you exactly what that means." Harsha tried to run again, but she realized she was moving in circles. Every street looked the same. Every reflection mocked her. The whispers grew louder, forming words she could barely understand. "You cannot leave. You cannot forget. You chose this." Aarav stepped closer, or maybe he didn't. Her eyes darted, but the space between them shifted unnaturally. The rain fell harder, the neon lights flickered violently, and the city seemed to pulse with anticipation. Harsha stumbled into another puddle, and as she looked down, her reflection moved independently. It smiled, whispered her name, and beckoned. She screamed, but no sound emerged. Then everything froze. The rain hung in the air, the neon lights blinked once, and silence enveloped her. She looked around. The square was empty, the streets still, the reflections gone. She was alone, or so it seemed. A faint vibration in her pocket reminded her of the phone she hadn't touched in what felt like hours. She pulled it out. On the screen was a single message. "One day you will swipe right again." Harsha dropped the phone. The city stretched infinitely before her, both familiar and alien. She realized with a bone-deep certainty that this nightmare wasn't over. Not for her, not for anyone. The city had claimed her, and the rules were clear. Once you open the door, the choice is never truly yours. And somewhere, in a place she could not see, Aarav's smile waited. Chapter 6. The never-ending swipe days, or perhaps weeks, passed. Harsha had no sense of time. The city continued its quiet, oppressive pulse, each street a maze, each reflection a distorted echo of herself. She wandered endlessly, chasing exits that never appeared. Every puddle window, and mirror reminded her she was no longer in control. Yet she began to notice patterns, small details she hadn't seen before. A lamppost tilted at the same angle, a shadow flickering in sync with her heartbeat, whispers repeating phrases she had once spoken aloud. The city remembered everything. It cataloged every choice, every thought, every fear. Aarav appeared only occasionally now, a flicker in the periphery, a smile in the reflections, never directly confronting her, but always watching. Sometimes she thought she could hear his voice inside her own mind. One day, you'll understand. Harsha's phone, long thought dead, buzzed occasionally with cryptic messages. One evening she looked down to see, another match awaits. Will you swipe right? Her hands shook. Her heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at her to reject it, to ignore it. But a strange, twisted curiosity lingered. The city had rewritten the rules, and she had become a part of its dark, endless game. She looked into a puddle. Her reflection stared back, tired, terrified, but strangely patient. And in the corner of the reflection, a shadow moved independently. Aarav's smile glimmered just behind her. She realized with terrifying clarity that the choice was never hers. It never had been. The city fed on desire, connection, curiosity, and the moment you swiped right, you were already inside. Harsha lifted her finger over the glowing screen. The new profile shimmered, waiting for her. She hesitated. The city held its breath. The neon flickered. The shadows leaned closer.